Okay, we're 1 minute past 12, so will make a start, and hopefully I can let Caroline in as we go. Okay. So for this session, I want to share an introduction to Frontline First, Fit to Care, and Insight Genie, and just to show how these things that I'm developing can contribute towards this big vision of Keir Starmer's and Lord Darcy's about reform or die. I've been on this journey for years, actually, but I completely and utterly 100% agree that we have to change. This reform or die message is a strong one, and I believe in it 100%. So I'm going to whiz through this overview of contents today in this session. The main thing is to relax. I'm not going to be selling anything, quite the opposite. Towards the end here, I'm going to be giving things away. There's going to be a couple of interaction sessions where I cover some content and then we can engage. The main thing is if you can chat through the LinkedIn chat, that will be really good. Morning, Jonathan. That's what I'll do. I'll pick up in these interaction pieces the chat that you've shared along the way. So please do get active with that chat. It'll be really useful for me. I'm hoping that Caroline's going to join me so that she can go through the chats and pull out the questions ready for those sections. I'm going to move quite quickly so that we've got time for Q&A at the end. I'm hoping to get to Q&A by about 12:45. I can hang on afterwards if people wanted more questions. So a little bit about me, not because it's comfortable to do this, but I feel like you need to know a little bit about me so that you know that you're listening to somebody that's got some value to add in this session. I want this session to be really packed full of great content so that you leave it feeling that was the best meeting of my week, ideally the best meeting of your month. That's what I'm trying to do here. So quick whistle-stop tour of my background then. So I qualified as a management accountant in 99 and had 10 years experience with several blue chip businesses, Airtours, Littlewoods, MB&A, places like that, commercial, financial type roles. And I started my work with the NHS in 2007, just on a 3-month contract to help Manchester PCT with their business case process, and got sucked into it and largely been doing NHS work ever since. One of the big things that I did, a big idea, which is a bit of a theme in my career, I come up with big ideas, which we'll talk about later. But one was this Healthy Towns Award that we did, where we developed Points for Life for Manchester PCT. And it was a preventative public health campaign, which was around you buy healthy things through supermarkets and other retailers, you get points, you get then prizes and rewards for doing healthy things. I've actually just noticed that Tesco are talking about this again now, 15 years later, which is amazing how these things come around. And then from 2014 to 2019, I was instrumental in some of the NHS Right Care projects, which again were quite life-changing for many people, long-term condition scenarios. And then the last 3 years, I've been instrumental in my latest career move in the NHS behaviour change team, where we've done a number of projects that have made a big impact. So that has largely driven my work here, my career change work, which is really focused on behaviour change and cognitive science. I've just written the book Fit to Care. You might have seen some posts on LinkedIn about I'm launching that this time next week. Here's the first hard copy. So it's almost ready to go. It'll be ready to buy on Amazon next Friday morning, fingers crossed. And also Insight Genie is a tool that I see could be a major transformational tool for us in terms of change, which I'll talk about a bit later. So on to the next slide. So I've just mentioned the book. This session is going to largely take the structure of the book as well. So I'm going to go through some problems. If we don't deeply understand the problems, then we can never really address them and fix them. Also, if we look at where we want to get to, and we can then see a tension between where we are now and where we want to get to, it generates a lot of momentum and passion to actually make that change happen. And then I'm going into the behavioral change, the behavioral science side of life, to explain why we fall into traps that cause us all sorts of problems, but that also gives us the answers as to what we can do to fix them. And I'll touch on some solutions today as well. If you like today's session, then I really think you'll like the book. So I believe way before Keir Starmer's statement about reform or die, that we absolutely have a massive challenge on our hands to support our public services. I don't think it's just the NHS that's struggling. I think all public services are really struggling. And I personally, passionately do not want them to go into privatisation. One of my missions to support this sustainability and the public sector thrive is this vision of mine of Frontline First. And I'll explain that as we go through today. So who is this session for? Ultimately, it's for citizens. That's who we serve. That's who we should be focused on. But in order for us to do this, it's for managers that feel overwhelmed, completely stressed out, want to retire early, really, really stressed. It's for you. And it's also for staff that feel like they are underappreciated, underutilized in terms of the skills they've got, and can make a bigger difference. The book focuses a lot on this area. So if this relates to you and you want to serve citizens, then this session is ideal. Session guidelines, that in the session, or the section particularly around the behavioral science and the cognitive science, there's probably going to be new things in there. So if you can keep with me and make some notes and put the notes in the chat, that'll be fantastic. I'm going to whiz through and spend some time, get through as quickly as I can, so we've got enough interaction time and Q&A at the end. So let's move into problems. I think people on this call will already be really familiar with the pressure and the problems. So I'm not going to take too much time here to give us more time in other areas. The pressure is real. Again, interviews through the book and research, it feels like the pressure's never been as bad as it is now. And there's lots of quotes to support this as well. You probably feel it as well. And actually, if you could start thinking about pressure in your experience now and start adding them into the comments, that'll be really helpful for the next little session of engagement together. The thing that's slightly unusual, and I go through this in the book, is I believe that this pressure is partly man-made and self-fulfilling because we've got this culture that's based around scientific management and command and control management structures, where we believe that the most efficient way to manage all our services is through silos, specialized teams that focus on their own little areas, and that becomes super efficient. And I'm going to argue that isn't the best way to manage, especially in public services and service sector. This represents somebody that's drowning and not waving, and there's lots and lots of evidence that this is real as well in the public services. And as a result of this, citizen service, waiting lists, it's all getting worse. Here's some examples of this. I know you know it as well. So 14-hour shifts, so much pressure, very toxic teams, lack of psychological safety in teams, inappropriate targets. It might tick some boxes for managers, but it's not in the best interest of patients. I suspect you're all really familiar with this sort of stuff. And here's an example, if you like, of siloed thinking, command and control management structures, where we end up with a colossal amount of bureaucracy that ultimately does not serve the patient. Now, I can bet that if we went through this and studied it and scrutinized it, there would be a lot of duplication. There would be a lot of impact on the patient where they're having to repeat information multiple times. It takes an age to go through. It's really painful for everybody. So that's an example of the sort of management structures that I believe we're dealing with at the moment and are getting worse. As the pressure builds, there's a bigger temptation to do more command and control, more audit work, more reports, and it just gets bigger and bigger. So this is the bit where I want to interact. So Caroline would normally be here, but I don't know where she's got to. So I will do my best at trying to address, or I'll bring Tanya on the stage. Hi,
Hello.
Tanya.
Hello, you're right.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Hello. Yeah, just seen that image of the admission paperwork. Yeah, I, I'm blazed, and it's absolutely true. It's so much paperwork, and actually, my background, just to explain why it blazes me and still shocking me, why we need to do so much paperwork. So, I work at North Bristol Trust in South Mid Hospital for now 10 years. I done all my nursing school back in Portugal, so I'm from Portugal, and in Portugal, I done my nursing school from 2008 until 2012,
Yeah,
and I never ever used any paperwork. I done placements in different hospitals and different GP surgeries, and I ever done any paperwork. It was all digital, all
yeah,
in tablets, all in computers. So back in Portugal, people think that everything that is outside Portugal is much better than Portugal. So
yeah,
when I
yeah,
came to England in 2013, and it was explained to me how it works and the amount of paperwork I was needing to do, I was what?
yeah,
I couldn't believe it. I
yeah,
actually couldn't believe it. And I said, like I said, I've been working for NHS for 11 years, and I work in two different trusts. So in
yeah,
2013, I was working in Wexham Park, that is in Slough, and like I said, in 2014, I moved here to Bristol to North Bristol Trust,
yeah,
and it's still like 11 years later, I don't understand why we are keep having paper. The digital program keeps delaying because because they keep saying and putting in phases and saying that people are not engaged with technology. And I'm like, in 2000s, Portugal just implemented the digital system. They didn't ask the staff if they were going to be happy or not. They just
yeah,
implemented it. And now the staff that even it was not happy in the beginning of the 2000s, they now recognize it was the best thing it could happen to them. Um, so yes, and
yeah.
I've been talking
I'm
with
glad
different,
that's
yeah.
I'm glad that's resonating.
Yeah,
Um,
is very very resonating. Like I said, in 11 years I've been working here. I've been talking with many IT people that is been trying to implement the digital program in the different trusts I worked,
yeah,
and I did even show them how the system that we use in Portugal and stuff like that. And yeah, I like I said, it should be another solutions and things, but yeah,
yeah,
what you're
absolutely.
doing is absolutely brilliant, and it's because of this I just came to join you today,
Oh, thank you
because I
very
just
much.
want
I
to
really
to
appreciate
hear
it.
your ideas, because your ideas I've been trying to have people to listen to me for now 11 years. So
Yeah,
thank you
we
so
need
much
to
for doing
change.
what you're doing.
We've got to.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
know.
going to
So
invite Caroline in as well. Caroline, I know you're on the standard LinkedIn side of things. There's a link to bring you through to the stage. I've actually just put it in the comments as well. Don't know if you can click into that, because I'm really keen to hear about the view from social services and social care, which is Caroline's area. I'm very familiar with the NHS because I've been working in it for almost 17 years now. So I've got a good sense of the NHS, but it'd be brilliant to get Caroline's views on this as well. So Caroline, if you can find that link and click in, I'll carry on for now, but then I'll bring you in, Caroline, in the next little breakout session, so we've got enough time at the end for lots more Q&As. I've just put the link in a comment in the actual event section, and it's in the details of the event section as well, Caroline. So hopefully you can find it while I just carry on with the next slides. Okay. So what I'm doing in the book, and what I'll do quickly with this session, is the problems are real. We've got massive problems. I've really focused on nurses in terms of the book. So we've got recruitment problems, we've got retention problems, we've got real stress whilst working, we've got quickly with this session is the problems are real. We've got Caroline, I think that's your audio coming through. And then where we need to get to, and this is the passion for me, because I believe we can, is we need a shared meaning. We need psychological safety so people can feel really comfortable coming into work with new ideas. We need a real focus on the patient so that we can serve the patient, really. The focus all the way through the pathway has got to be on the patient and for other citizens, for other services, social care and the police, etc. And I think we can, I know we can get there. It's definitely possible. And we generate that real passion to bridge that gap, and we can achieve amazing things. So just going into the next section then. Going into this is the cognitive science bit that has completely blown my mind in studying this area the last 3 years in particular. So this particular section is from John Vervaeke, Professor John Vervaeke from Toronto University. And he explains combinatory explosion, and he uses a chess example to explain it. So on a chessboard, there are 32 pieces, or the academics call them agents. And each one of those pieces has got a handful of rules. But the complexity of just that number of pieces and the rules that they've each got and the number of moves in a game means that there's more potential legal moves in a game of chess than there are particles in the universe. That is not a mistake. That is an accurate statement, which is absolutely mind-blowing. It really has changed my life since I realized this, and I started to apply this knowledge, if you like, to our real world scenarios. If you think about a nurse on a ward, might have 12 patients, each with different conditions, different medications, different equipment, different family members, different shared decision-making preferences. The number of variables is colossal, and this combinatory explosion takes hold. And ultimately, what that means is we can't manage other human beings and complex services like this with simplistic checklists and command and control rules. It doesn't work. What we do is we attempt to turn people into robots and just do that. And it doesn't work. We end up creating much more waste through workaround and reworks because we don't get things right first time. We have to take this combinatory explosion into account, realize that nurses and all clinicians and all staff actually have to evaluate all these variables to do a great job. We can't just oversimplify things. And to me, my favorite quote, I've got Socrates here with me every day, is all I know is I know nothing. And I believe that Socrates knew this 2,500 years ago. So even though he's the brightest man on the planet at the time, he realized that he literally knows nothing. If you please replay this later on, if that hasn't really resonated with you, because it's genuinely mind-blowing. So because everything is so complicated, the human brain has to generate heuristic mental shortcuts so that we can cope with all this complexity in the world. So just to try and help explain these heuristics, if everybody, and maybe in the chat, you can put in the chat what the first word that comes into your mind with your partner or one of your children. So it could be energetic, it could be miserable, it could be whatever the word is. A word will come to your mind when you think about a particular person that you know well. It could be your boss. So I don't know if somebody could give me an example in the LinkedIn chat, which I can then see. But the point is that what you're doing there is you're using heuristics. So last week we had controlling came through in terms of somebody's boss, and challenging is one that's just come through. And what you've done there is you've taken literally hundreds of thousands of bits of information over the months and years that you've been working with these people, and you've generated a heuristic. It's a mental shortcut that helps you deal with that person on a day-to-day basis. You've got a real sense of how they'll react in given situations. And we are brilliant. Human beings are brilliant at managing these heuristics. But the problem is that we can be over reliant on these heuristics. And if we are, we generate bias and we can make terrible mistakes because we over rely on them. So here's an example. So here you might have come across this, but if not, if it's a new thing for you, it'll be really interesting. So the challenge here is you've got these 9 dots. You've got to move your pen over those 9 dots to create 4 lines without taking your pen off the paper to cover all dots. Just in interest of time, it would be great if I could just give everybody 5 minutes, but I can predict, because there's been lots of studies on this, 99.6% of people cannot do it. And the reason is that they've generated a heuristic in their childhoods, often by sort of drawing by numbers and painting by numbers, which in their mind has created this fixed heuristic of you can't go outside of the box. This is where that common phrase thinking outside the box comes from. So if we look at the answer is really simple. You draw the line down, you imagine a 4th dot, then you draw the line up and imagine another 4th dot, and then across and then down, and you've done it. And the answer is simple as simple, but people can't do it because they just can't break that mental frame that they've got. They just can't do it. 99.6% of people can't do it anyway. And that's the sort of heuristics that we need to be really cautious of, and we need to be protective against overdoing these types of mental shortcuts. So this is where the cognitive science comes in. And if you look in my LinkedIn sort of title bit, it's Insight Generator. What I really try to do, and what I'm hoping I'm doing in this session, is breaking some of your frames and creating aha moments and some insights which generate a spark of change potential. It's a seed of change potential. I'm going to talk about this a bit more in the next slide. And the other factor to change is making things really simple. I'm going to come back to this later as well, but simplicity is much more important than motivation. Motivation is flaky and you can't trust it. So simplicity has to be our real focus. So this slide, I'm going to show you this video in action in a second. But what's happening when we generate an aha breakthrough moment is that we get our brain generating at 40 hertz level, brainwave level. Normally, when we've got, like in this sort of environment, in a normal meeting environment, we're in a 40 to 30 hertz. We've got critical reasoning and we're operating at high level. But when we have a breakthrough moment, we're operating at a much higher level in terms of brainwave frequency. We're generating connections that have not been made before. And you go, I've not thought about that. That is the start of a new pathway for us, and it's the start of a new identity. So let me just change the scene. So imagine that this is your fixed neural pathway, and day in, day out, you do things, and that's why you do them, because you're successful. You know, your career has been successful because you do these things. But sometimes those things can be the wrong things completely, and you need new neural pathways to do a better job. So I'll just run this again. Picture this. Hopefully what I've done today is generate one of these new neural pathways with an aha moment, whether it's the cognitives, whether it's the combinatory explosion, or whether it's this itself. But I'm hoping that you've had one of these connections today. And what we need to do is we need to develop that now. We need to fertilize it and nurture it and make it grow to the point where that becomes another almost like neural pathway motorway. It's a strong, rigid, it's the way you think. You've become a new person with that new connection. Okay, so I'm hoping that this is making sense. So we are understanding these heuristics now. We can't live without them. That combinatorial explosion means we would go insane if we tried to analyze everything. It's impossible. You'd go absolutely insane and you would get trapped in analysis paralysis. So we have to use heuristics, and we're usually very good at them. But we've also equally got to be really aware of biases that can be caused by these heuristics, because back to the 9 dots, sometimes we just can't see what we can't see. And there are amazing new answers and better ways of doing things if we can have those aha moments. Back to that earlier point I made about scientific management, I believe most cultures in most organizations in the UK have been driven, and a lot of education has been driven by scientific management and command and control approaches. Become brilliant in your little sphere and we'll all be amazingly productive. It's not right. That heuristic is not appropriate. It's biased. So bias for me is a heuristic that's been used in the wrong context, in the wrong time, in the wrong place, and it's just wrong. It's just not the right way to do things. But we've got these heuristics and they're really firm in our minds. So what we get when we get this new pressure, this added pressure, the continual pressure is we've got to work harder. We need more specialisms. We need more rules. We need more audits. And it just creates more and more pressure, which is the wrong way to do it. What we've got to do, and what we've got to mentally open, so that we don't have those biases, we make better decisions. But what we do when we have this more and more pressure is we close down, we get even more narrow, we get even more focused on the heuristics that have got us through life so far. So this is very dangerous, and it becomes worse and worse, a self-fulfilling prophecy of a downward cycle. What we've got to do is open and have a mental opening to tackle this. Okay. By the way, guys, anybody that has got any questions, please put them in the LinkedIn comments, because we'll pick them up in a minute as we're going through. I'm hoping that this is making some sense and you're having some aha moments. Just to consolidate that combinatory explosion point, this is a Vervaeke work as well. I've changed the labels because people prefer this more simplistic language. But essentially, we've got a lot of academic knowledge. Now, all our business cases are particularly geared around academic knowledge, facts and figures, break-even point, return on investment, my background in finance. But what we actually need to make brilliant decisions is these additional 3 layers of knowledge. So it's skill knowledge, people that have got the skills to do these things. You've got viewpoint knowledge, people that have got, we're talking about the same thing, but they're coming at it from a different viewpoint. You need to bring that into the equation. And you've got the actual doing knowledge. So you might understand it academically, you might have the skills, but actually, unless you do it, you don't really know what's going on. And this is what we have to build on. We're typically far too focused on the academic, and we completely miss all this. And I'll give you an example in a second. This was my eureka moment and my career-changing moment, and it's a practical, an actual use case for me. What happened was there was a national business case, and it was a big one, and it was done really professionally, and no doubt it was quite expensive. And it turned into a national rollout for 6 regions, and it was over a 2 or 3 year period. And therefore, it was well invested in, and it was quite expensive in terms of the whole project. One of my bosses at the time that I was working on a different project asked me to have a look at this other project because it wasn't working as they'd anticipated. And what I did was, back to this concept of frontline first, was I went and interviewed 10 nurses on the front line that were meant to be integrating this business case and applying the business case. And what I found was there was a whole host of things that at the academic level hadn't been picked up, but these other 3 layers of knowledge were critical. So there was lots and lots of things. The one that will stick with me till the day I die was they used to get car park permits to put in the dashboard so that they could visit every patient very quickly and very easily. And the council said, we can't afford to give you those for free anymore. They're going to be £100 a year. And the NHS tight on budget said, well, we can't afford that. We've got no budget, therefore you can't have them. Thereby, the nurses then can be taking up to 20 minutes to find a car parking space when they've only got 15 minutes to see the patient. And there was a whole host of these things going on, which meant that in reality, they couldn't do the very, very basics. The academic logic of the business case was driving that we need an extra 5 or 10 minutes per patient so that we can glean all the value from this business case, which was all brilliant, but it just wasn't possible. Now, if they'd have got that other 3 layers of knowledge from the front line at the very start of that business case process, then they could have managed, they could have mitigated to make it all work much more smoothly. As a result, I believe they lost a lot of time and a lot of money. So this is where the frontline first vision has really come from. So it's a big eureka moment for me. I want to drive my career on this. My career from now on, it has to be bridging the gap between those high-level decision makers and the people on the ground, the frontline first, that can add the knowledge that we need to make better decisions. The colossal information that we've got to deal with all needs to boil down to this, and this is where Fit to Care comes in. Fit to Care is, there's an element of personal fitness. If you're personally fit and you're feeling great and you're in a good place, you can do amazing things. But beyond the bigger picture than that, which is where Fit to Care really drives from, is we have to focus on patients and our citizens. That has to be our first and foremost priority. But we have to understand the constraints that the organisations have got, particularly finance, and we have to understand the constraints that our staff members have got. We can't work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So we have to use all this colossal amount of information to get the right balance, to get all three of those, and there's many more as well. This is a simplistic diagram, but that is the Fit to Care. How on earth do we manage all that information? That is the key thing. And that's why a lot of managers want to engage at that front line, but they just haven't got the capacity, the capability to do it. There's just so much, which is why they're using heuristics inappropriately in many ways. This is where the dawn of AI can be unbelievably powerful and productive. And this is what I'll propose that we can start to make a massive change with. When we're all pulling together, so this to me represents the team and this represents the patient. When we're all absolutely aligned and we're pulling together and we're not in our dysfunctional silos, we can achieve amazing things. We can massively improve the outcomes for patients. We can massively improve health and well-being of staff, and we can turn all our public sector organisations into sustainable, thriving organisations. I genuinely believe that we can do it. So this is the time now to, again, open up to the floor. I'll just bring in, sorry about this, guys. I'm still playing with the system. So Sarah and Caroline are now in the on the stage. Caroline, I've been really keen to hear your perspective from a social care angle as to the problems and how all this fits.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Sorry, I've been mucking around with the camera there. I pressed the wrong button. So thank you very much. It's great to be here, Anthony. As you know, we've been speaking for some time over this. I think it's absolutely fabulous. I think one of the criticisms that we've all had is the fact that we working together, and the working together agenda is about us all working together and communicating a wee bit more effectively, which we still, I don't believe, really effectively achieved. I think that with the integration of a tool like this, I've worked in hospitals as safeguarding and worked in local authorities now for over 30 years within safeguarding. And I think one of the biggest criticisms, and also one of the biggest struggles that we all have, is the communicating together. There's several cases that I've actually shared with you in terms of the, I've been a CP chair now for over 9 years, and pulling all the systems together to communicate effectively for even prior to conferences is very, very difficult. Yeah. And we do work in isolation all the time, as much as we say that we don't, but we do. And we have to integrate this technology and actually not fear it. Because initially when we moved, I remember 15, 16 years ago, I still had paper files, and then we moved over to a system and everyone was scared of the system. What if it breaks down? What if it does this? What if it does that? Now, whilst it's made work, well, I question this really, somewhat easier, in terms of keeping that information centralized, but it hasn't in terms of the communication still isn't centralized, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
we're still very much working in our own systems, collating that information. Even in hospital discharge, when you think of a system like this, how this can improve that process and make it a lot simpler. But
Yeah.
what I find, I mean, as many people know, is, you know, in 2018, I developed the QR code resource keyring, and I'm not bringing that in for any other reason other than to say to you, initially people were like, no one's going to use a QR code, no one's used it, but we do. And look how
Yeah.
effective that transition, bringing in that innovation has been to all of our systems.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that, you know, and when you look at what you're trying to achieve, it's on a greater level in terms of really listening to what working together really means. You
Yeah.
know, when we have the serious case reviews, we all know one of the biggest issues is working together and communication. And it's huge. It's a massive, massive issue, and it needs to be addressed like this, but all of the systems to work together to pull it together to make it effective.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, but I feel your pain, and I feel like it's really consistent with the NHS.
Oh, absolutely, Anthony. And I
Yeah.
think this is the thing, is that I think initially when I first spoke to you, going through all your posts and what you were posting, I was thinking, we're feeling the same way. I speak to teachers are feeling the same way. I speak to, you know, health professionals. We're all saying the same thing, Anthony, all of
Yeah.
us, but we're
Yeah.
not talking. We're still not talking. Whereas
Yeah.
this tool can introduce that. It
Yeah.
can make us talk better, because someone's got to step in and say, right, this has to happen, because it's not happening. And how many serious case reviews do we have to hear? And how
I
many
think,
patients?
yeah, and absolutely. We'll come on to it in a minute, and I'll walk people
Sorry.
through it. But I feel the fundamentals that I talked through earlier were, we do things at an academic level, and this session
Yes.
is an academic level. So people will be sort of, hopefully, and put in the chat, getting it and going, yes, I sort of understand this. I feel it. I'm just going to come on to the tool in a second, Jonathan. But until you actually use it and you go, okay, that's when you get it. And maybe, I don't know if anybody just wants to put in the LinkedIn comments any questions that we've got on that last section, but otherwise I'll just get on to the next section where I can show Jonathan this tool.
Sorry.
Okay, so I think I'll make a start on getting through, and then I'll be pretty much on time for the Q&A at the end as well. Okay, so let's move on. So I've had my eureka moment with that case study where I've got to, my career now has to be about bridging the gap between the senior teams and the people on the front line. That's my eureka moment. I know from experience that big ideas like the one I'm about to share with you is not going to get us anywhere, and a lot of the ideas in the book as well won't get anywhere without support from people like you, where we can have a combined energy and passion. I'm not going to be able to do this on my own, but if we can build a bit of a movement and we can build the energy and passion together, then I think we absolutely can make a big dent. So I'll move on to this tool, this Genie tool. I said earlier that when we spark that aha moment of, okay, I get this, there's something else to do, there's a different way to work, we have to make it really simple. So I've developed an AI tool. AI is the missing link to my eureka moment problem, because AI is so effective at taking a mass amount of qualitative data and turning it into understandable information for us to make better decisions. So I've made it very, very simple, and I've got a little video here just to share, because the video is a better way to share it. Hopefully you can hear the sound. Please shout in the comments if you can't hear the sound, but hopefully you will. Is to run a Genie research project. So we click on, in this case, a new problem, and we type in here what the manager's problem is. So this is sickness problems in the team. And in here we put in the context, and then we can send this through to the team members. This is what the team members get. They don't have to register any details. It's straight into here, a short description video to explain how the process works. And then they've got just thinking time to really get into this issue. What are the main issues and problems from your perspective? What are the root causes and how do we fix these problems, and anything else that we need to know? 5-10 minutes of deep thinking, just pure qualitative download, accept terms and conditions and press submit. Very easy. And then within minutes the manager gets the report. So you can see the title and the context, and then we get an exec summary. So the top 5 insights from all that knowledge from the front line and the 3 potential quick wins. Dynamite information. We move away from gut reactions about what you think's going on, who needs to be reprimanded, into real insights and knowledge about what's going on in the team. These then get analysed and broken down into detail. So we get the detail of the problems, we get the detail of the solutions, we get what else and what to research. So, pinpoints around robust evidence bases in terms of further research for these topics. We get a action plan to-do list in terms of what to do with regard to this research. And then you've always got the appendix source data from the people that have contributed. Now, it's all anonymous. This is just dummy data just to make the point. But typically you don't get people putting in their positions. You can do, but we certainly insist on no personal data into the system. That supports really reducing IG risk, but it also means that people can really be honest and open about the feedback that they're giving, which is generating the highest value. So you can see how amazing that resource is, and it's pulled together as simply as producing an email. And these are the results that you get really very, very quickly. You don't need to wait 6 weeks for a meeting to really get to the bottom of what's going on within your team in this particular scenario. So that's the fundamentals of the tool, Jonathan. There's absolutely loads and loads of use cases. And for me, we need to focus initially on saving people time. And I can talk about this a little bit later in the Q&A if we want, but halving meeting times is a big ambition for me. So what I believe the benefits are of Insight Genie, one tool and technique for us, there's many in the book, but I think this is the big one, is to get us to a place where staff are genuinely, authentically contributing. They're using their brain power to the point where they start to love their jobs. They're not having this command and control hammer on their heads every day. It's a much different team structure and feel and environment. Meetings, we can halve meeting times. We can maybe talk about that in the Q&A. Imagine the life in public sector if we could halve our meeting times. Ultimately, it's about making better decisions. Those extra 3 layers of knowledge will generate better decisions, which will serve citizens in a much better way. That's ultimately what we're trying to do. So hopefully I've planted a seed and generated an aha moment such that we can make change happen. We don't have to keep doing the same things that we've always done. We absolutely can make changes. I want to break that belief that it's not affordable because this is cheap, it's not expensive. I want to break that belief that we can't do anything because of information governance. Well, we can, because there's no personal data stored in the system. And we massively encourage that people do not enter personal data. It's a big emphasis on that. So there is a way to do things differently. And I believe that this can be a really powerful tool for us. I've started to pilot test it, and we are gathering much more diverse views because we can reach out to many more stakeholders. We don't have to make the decision at the top and then go, we haven't spoken to patients. Let's do that as a back end thing and tick a box. We don't need to do that anymore. We can absolutely focus on the front line first, doing that first. We can enable a deeper dive. We can dig deep into the information that we're getting from people. And we can reduce and improve the efficiency of meetings. So in practice, this is not a wonder tool. It's not a magic bullet. It's about a tool in our toolbox just to help us. It's as easy. I mentioned easy before. It's got to be easy, otherwise people won't use it. And it is easy. It's got to be easy for stakeholders to engage with it, and it is easy. The extra thing I'd say there is, when we implement this, we have to do it with the right approach from a management perspective. We have to use it to change culture, so that when we listen to staff and patients through this mechanism, we genuinely, authentically want to hear their voice, and that has to be made crystal clear. It will generate more diverse set of insights, and we will get deeper into the brains and the brain power of these individuals through this approach. It's easy to understand the outputs. It can be massively quicker than our traditional approaches. Meetings can be very, very slow. It enables us to focus on the citizen. That's ultimately the goal, where we fall apart on many of our pathways because we're all in silos. We forget the patient and the patient's journey through that pathway. And I just mentioned that it supports this culture change and makes meetings more efficient. So the summary then of today, which I'm hoping you'll go away with at least some of these aha moments, is Socrates, and all I know is that I know nothing, is a magical quote, and it means so much to me. If that can mean more to you after today, then I think I've done the job that I wanted to do. We can and we need to generate these shoots for change, these eureka moments. We'll never change anything without new stimulus. Without that new brain connection, we won't change anything. Everybody will stay on their fixed paths with their existing heuristics. We've got to generate stimulus for change. Insight Genie is a massive support for us to do that. We've also then got to make everything easy. The processes that we manage to go through this change process have to be really easy. We have to focus on ease. That fertilizes the shoots and makes it grow and makes it happen, makes us change our identity and who we are and how we do things. And then we've got to manage this reservoir of massively more data to make better decisions. And the AI in Insight Genie helps us make sense of all that really quickly and efficiently. With all that, we can get this balance right, and we can get to a position of we're fit to care and we're generating many better decisions, and the results that we deliver are a lot better. So I said at the beginning, not selling anything, but I am actually engaging to give stuff away. So I also said earlier that we're operating at an academic level much of the time, and we need to pull these extra 3 layers of knowledge together. So from an Insight Genie perspective, the best way for you to generate these extra 3 layers of knowledge is to actually use it and play with it yourself. It's only when you've got your own problem that you put it in, you engage with a few extra colleagues, and you get the responses back and the report back, and you always get I hadn't thought about that. That is really powerful. And that's when you really get it. That's when you get all 4 layers of knowledge and you actually get it. So this is the giveaway bit. I don't know if you can just take a screenshot of this and that QR code. You can actually get through and use that code, and you can get a course about Insight Genie and the top tips and the best way to utilize it and to really understand it, I guess, through that. And if you can't get that QR code, then just message me through LinkedIn, do me a direct message, and I'll make sure that you get that info. What I'm going to start doing, I think I'm going to do it every other Friday. So I think I'm going to do one of these sessions every other Friday, and then a taste session with Insight Genie every other Friday, which is where I will work with people like you that have got a particular interest in a particular problem, and we'll do it live. We will run the system, we'll glean the insights, and we'll generate a report within the hour. And that report should be dynamite for you to go away and work with back at the office and back with your teams. And that's a great way of you actually experiencing it as well. So keep an eye out for those live sessions every other Friday. Just picked up a point from Jonathan. I'll come back to that later. But no, I don't know the Insight Genie IO. That's a completely separate product, I think. This one's just mine. I've just developed this myself, insightgenie.com. So Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your time. I know how important it is to engage with a much broader audience. That's why I'm really working hard and trying to reach out on LinkedIn. Again, there's a QR code to contact me and set up a 15-minute call if you want to talk about any of this stuff personally. The recording of this will be saved in LinkedIn almost immediately. So if you wanted to get back to it and watch it again, or you wanted to share it with any colleagues, then you'll find it in that events section within my profile. And I'd just like to close with thank you ever so much for the time. Time is massively precious for us all. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think we could actually make a massive difference. I think we can. I think the Reform or Die is a really strong message, and we should cling to that and keep pushing that. And on that basis, I'm 5 minutes late for the Q&A. So I will shut this down and come back to the stage where we can all have a quick discussion and a chat and pull through. I don't know, Caroline, if you've spotted any comments that I need to pick up or I've not addressed. But just to make a bit more of a point on the Jonathan comment. Now, this insightgenie.com is something that just I've developed, Jonathan. It's just been that passion of seeing that gap between the decision makers and the people on the front line and feeling like I've got to do something about it. So it's just me. It's just my product. If anybody... Yeah, hi, Caroline.
So I wasn't quite sure if you could hear me. I think, to be honest, John, I think you're speaking for many. I think you're probably speaking for thousands of us out there, that we're all in the same predicament where we want change, but it's someone standing ahead and saying, right, okay, this can change, and let's make it change. And I think all throughout all of our years of working in these industries, working with people, we all see things that should be different, but we don't communicate. And I think this platform that you've created here now for us all talking on a weekly basis kind of evidences that more so, because when you hear, because someone here was saying earlier that they've been changing things, they've been wanting change for many, many years. And I don't think that's many of us working in isolation, but you're speaking for all the systems. It's not just NHS.
Yes, yeah, and I'm starting to work with a few senior police, career policemen from senior levels in the police, and again, it feels like a really common theme. And my wife's a senior teacher, and I know the pain that she's experiencing in the schooling system.
And I think as well is even when we have our meetings, though, it's kind of, why do all the systems have to travel in? We can use this tool so much more effectively to save time. It can be more effective in supervision. I mean, it's just so versatile, isn't it? What you could do.
Yeah, I'm actually building new frames every week. So I just did a Desert Island Diary interview with Chris Cooper, who's a big lean Kaizen change expert. And he talked to me in that session about the benefit and the beauty of an ideal state workshop. You can unlock a lot of those heuristics and those inappropriate heuristics by looking at things from that perspective. And I ran it this week with Sue Bacon, who's on the session. And it's crazy how within a few minutes you just start to think differently, and it generates new perspectives. And you go, I've been struggling with that problem for months. And now all of a sudden I can see a different way to do it. So there's lots of use cases for it. And another one is building a business case. So you've got a business case that you've been tasked with. You put the topic and the context of the business case together. You share that with all the relevant key people. And then Insight Genie will generate a business case for you, which is 60, 70, 80% done.
Yeah.
So instead of us taking 3 months to do a business case, we can take a few weeks to do a business case because we've got the fundamental foundations in place, and then we need to tweak it and update it and put the financials in.
And I think
many things.
That's the thing with AI as well, isn't there? There is a level of anxiety around using AI, but even with when you look at the legal barristers and think people like that have been directed to use it, but we're not all using these tools, and we should be.
Yeah, we do need to work with them professionally and carefully, for sure. So I'm working with Knots at the moment. We're going to do a proper formal 3 pilots with Nottingham
It's
Trust,
gone off.
and we're being really red hot on the information governance to make sure that it's really well controlled. I think you've also got to manage the design of it, which is my thing. So I design all the prompts in a rigorous way so that the outputs in the report are structured and quality, and what we get out is consistent and really good. Yeah, so Jonathan's made the point that you can do this already. So the Insight Genie is linked with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is the engine. The secret to this is designing the prompts, and you've got to design them in a way and engineer them such that you do it in a sequence, because AI is a little bit like a mirror. If you put in shallow inputs, you get shallow, inappropriate, pretty rubbish outputs as well. So the design of the prompts is really, really critical. And then the software pulls everything together so that we've got all the insights from all your cohorts.
It's gone off, darling. I can't hear you.
So I don't know if somebody can't hear me, but I think Caroline was struggling to hear me. She's left. But any more questions, please do shout. And in fact, Jonathan, if you wanted to come on stage, you're certainly welcome to. The link is in the details of the event if you wanted to come on stage. Has anybody else got any questions that I can whiz through? Tanya, you've said that you can't access the QR code. If you can contact me on LinkedIn, just give me a connection. I think we're connected already. So if you can
Yes, we are. I'll contact you. Thank you. Yeah, I'll do that.
Just so I don't forget that, because I'm pretty good on responding on
Yes,
LinkedIn.
I'll do that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
And honestly, thank you so much for what you're doing. Is like I said again, is very considerated, and is like Caroline is saying, we all are feeling the same. And really, honestly, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic.